My mother is dying in an operating room, and you're out drinking. Are you even a person? Tell me. Are you human? My mother was lying in a bed at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. On the third day after her surgery to remove stomach cancer, I sent a text message to my husband. Can you come tonight to look after Mom? I haven't slept in 3 days. My husband's reply was brief. I have an important meeting tomorrow. Just hire a caregiver. From that day on, for exactly 90 days, he never once set foot in that hospital room. A year later, my mother-in-law slipped on the front steps of her Upper East Side apartment and fractured her tibia. At 2 a.m., a text from my husband arrived, punctual as a clock. Come to the hospital right now. You need to take care of my mother. I looked at my phone screen and gave a bitter smile. I replied with a single sentence. It was the sentence I had repeated to myself every night for the past year like a mantra. Before we begin the main story, if you could subscribe and hit the like button, it would be a great help. All right, then listen closely. When I got that call, I was in the office break room, making a powdered latte from the machine, the kind that's so sweet it makes your teeth ache. The sound of the plastic stir stick scraping the bottom of the paper cup was sharp. However, the moment I heard the words, "The biopsy results aren't good," that everyday noise stabbed my ears like a dagger. Am I speaking with Mrs. Emily Carter? I'm calling from New York General Hospital, from the gastroenterology department. The nurse's voice was serene, a trained calmness. I later realized they make dozens of calls like that every day, delivering bad news to someone. For them, it's just part of the job. We have the results of your mother's biopsy, Mrs. Helen Davis. The pathology report reveals the presence of a poorly differentiated adenocarcinoma in the gastric antrum. She needs to be hospitalized as soon as possible for further tests and to schedule surgery. Adenocarcinoma. Those two words, like sharp shards of ice, traveled through the receiver, pushed through my ear, down my esophagus, and landed with a dull thud in the pit of my stomach. I tried to say something, but only a wheeze came out of my throat, as if someone were strangling me. Mrs. Carter, can you hear me? Yes. My voice sounded hoarse, like sandpaper. What does it mean that it's advanced? To know for sure, we need to do a CT and a PET scan once she's admitted. But based on the biopsy, it appears the tumor has already invaded the muscular layer, so it would be best to schedule the surgery as soon as possible. The fluorescent light in the break room was pale. Everything around me seemed to have a sickly, bluish tint. I looked at my hands. I was still clutching the plastic stir stick. My knuckles were white from the tension, and the latte had already gone cold. After hanging up, I stood in the break room for about 3 minutes, or maybe it was 5, I'm not sure. In that moment, time became thick and sticky, like honey solidifying in winter. It just wouldn't flow. Mom. My mom has cancer. The thought spun in my head, but it couldn't take on a real form. It was as if someone had told me, tomorrow, the earth will stop spinning. I understood each word separately, but the meaning of the full sentence was incomprehensible. The phone was still in my hand. I stared blankly at the call log I had just ended, and suddenly, I remembered. I have to call Rick. Yes, Rick, my husband. I dialed his number. The phone rang 4 times before he answered. Yeah? What is it? His voice sounded annoyed. Through the phone, I could hear the murmur of people and the shuffling of papers. It was a familiar noise. He was in a meeting. Honey. My voice trembled. The hospital just called. Mom has stomach cancer. What? Stomach cancer? They say it's advanced. The doctor says she needs surgery immediately. There was a 2-second silence on the other end of the line. Then I heard him sigh. It was the kind of sigh that says, here we go again. Okay, you handle it for now, but I'm in the middle of a meeting. You know it's important. We'll talk later. Click. The call ended. I stared at the words, call ended on my phone's screen. My mind went blank. Call duration, 7 seconds. The fact that my mother had cancer was worth a mere 47 seconds in my husband's schedule. The break room door opened. It was Laura, a colleague from the finance department. She walked in with her thermos and stopped when she saw me. "Boss, you look awful. Are you feeling sick?" "It's nothing." A mechanical response left my mouth. "Just a little dizzy." I poured the cold latte down the sink, rinsed the cup, and left the room. Back at my desk, I turned on the monitor. An Excel file was open, the cost analysis report for the last quarter. The numbers crowding the white cells looked like a swarm of thousands of ants. I stared at it for 30 seconds, but I couldn't read a single letter. I grabbed my purse and went to my manager's desk. "A family emergency has come up." My manager glanced at me. She probably guessed from the color of my face. She nodded without asking any questions. To get from the office to the hospital, I had to make 2 subway transfers, from the 4 train to the 6, and then to the Q. Since it was past rush hour, there were plenty of empty seats, but I stood for the entire ride. I felt that if I sat down, I wouldn't be able to get back up. I leaned against the glass by the door and looked out. The dark tunnel walls sped by. The roar of the subway was deafening, so loud I couldn't hear anything, not even my own heartbeat. It was a relief. I didn't want to hear anything. The gastroenterology ward was on the 5th floor. When I opened the door to the room, I saw my mother. She was sitting up, leaning against the raised headboard of the bed, peeling a clementine. "Emily, you're here!" Seeing me, my mother smiled broadly. "What are you doing here at this hour? Didn't you go to work?" I stood in the doorway, watching her. A 62-year-old woman with short, graying hair, dressed in a hospital gown. She was much thinner than the last time I saw her. Her cheekbones were prominent, and her skin looked dull. And yet, she smiled as if nothing was wrong, as if she had only come for a routine checkup. "Did you talk to the doctor?" I approached and sat beside her on the bed. "Yes." My mother continued peeling the clementine with her head down. Her fingertips were stained orange. "They say I have a little something in my stomach, that they just have to take it out, and that's it." "Mom, are you okay?" My mother interrupted me by offering me the peeled clementine. "Modern medicine is a marvel. One operation, and it's over. Look at the lady in the next bed. She had surgery last year, and now she's right as rain." The citrusy scent of the clementine filled my nostrils. A smell so fresh it hurt. I accepted the fruit. It was cold in my palm. "Don't cry." My mother stroked my head like she did when I was a child, 35 years old and crying at the drop of a hat. For shame. I wasn't crying, but I couldn't stop my eyes from welling up. "When is the surgery?" "They have to do a CT scan and some more tests to set the date. I suppose it'll be next week." My mother said it as casually as she would say she was going to the farmer's market next week. I started doing mental calculations. Admission, tests, surgery, recovery. She would need to be hospitalized for at least a month. Who would take care of her? What about my job? And the hospital bills? "Emily," my mother suddenly lowered her voice. "Yes? Don't tell Rick's family." I stared at her, perplexed. "What? Not tell his family I'm sick?" My mother avoided my gaze, fidgeting with the half clementine left in her hand. "If they find out, it will only cause you trouble. They'll think your family is a burden and look down on you." "Mom, what are you saying? Listen to me." "I know. Your mother-in-law." My mother's voice trailed off, so faint it was almost lost in the hum of the room's air conditioner. "I know that family is hard on you. You think I don't notice?" I didn't know what to say. I felt a lump in my throat. My mother knew. Even though she had never said a word, she knew everything. And still, every time I went to see her, she would pack my bags with artisan olive oil, homemade preserves, and organic beans, all those precious things that would end up rotting in a corner of my in-laws' refrigerator before being thrown in the trash. "I can manage on my own. You don't take any days off. Keep going to work." That night I returned home on the last train. When I opened the door, the living room was dark. Only the television was on. On a comedy show, the canned laughter of the audience erupted. Rick was lying on the sofa, looking at his phone. The bluish light from the screen flickered on his face. "You're home?" He didn't turn to look at me. "Yes." "Did you have dinner?" "Yes." A lie. Since the half-finished coffee at lunchtime, I hadn't had a sip of water, but I had no desire to explain. I changed into my slippers and went to the bedroom to put down my purse. My husband didn't ask how my mother was. He didn't ask about the test results or the date of the surgery. Nothing. As if that 4-7-second phone call had never happened. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at our wedding photo hanging on the wall. There we were. 7 years ago, I was 28 and he was 30. With my veil on, I was smiling radiantly, and thanks to the photo editing, it seemed my whole body was glowing. Back then, I truly believed I had found a good man. Rick, a project manager at a large development firm, a salary of $70,000 a year, a born and bred New Yorker with a good job, and parents with secure retirements. They had bought the Upper East Side apartment with a mortgage, but they said its value was guaranteed by the prime location. My mother-in-law also seemed kind at first. She used to hold my hand and say, "Our Emily is so proper and capable." I thought that by getting married, I would find stability, that I would be happy. From the living room, the canned laughter from the TV continued. The sound was splitting my head. The first snow of winter fell in New York on the day of my mother's surgery. I left the house at 5 a.m. My husband was asleep, covered up to his head. His snores were rhythmic and loud. As I put on my shoes in the entryway, I tiptoed. I didn't know why, even in this situation, I was worried about waking him. But habit is a powerful thing. The subway station was deserted. A few cleaners in fluorescent vests were mopping the platform floor. I stood behind the yellow safety line and looked into the darkness of the tunnel. The surgery was at 8 a.m. I arrived at the hospital around 6:30, and my mother was already awake. The nurse had told her she had to fast for 8 hours before the surgery and was only allowed to wet her lips with water. "Why did you come so early?" My mother looked at me reproachfully. "It's snowing hard outside." "No, it just started." "And why are you so lightly dressed?" My mother touched the sleeve of my jacket. "Your hands are like ice. Did you have breakfast?" "Yes, I ate." I lied again. At 7:30, a nurse came to put on her surgical gown. Tied with ribbons at the back, my mother looked incredibly small. I fixed her hair and put the disposable blue surgical cap on her. Among her scattered gray hairs, I saw age spots on her scalp. It was then that I realized my mother had aged. When had she gotten so old? While I was busy with work, trying to please my mother-in-law, and pretending to be happy, my mother had aged alone, in silence. At 7:45, an orderly arrived. They put my mother on a gurney and took her to the elevator. Walking beside her, I squeezed her hand tightly. It was a rough, dry hand. "Don't worry." It was she who comforted me. "I'll take a little nap, and when I wake up, it will all be over." I was waiting outside, in front of the heavy steel door of the operating room in the basement, before the red in-surgery light came on. "The companion must wait here." I let go of her hand. My mother looked at me and smiled. It was the expression of a frightened child forcing a smile so as not to be scolded. The door closed with a dull thud. I was left alone in the hallway. The small window in the door was dark. The warm air coming from the ceiling vents was dry. The hallway was long and desolate. Pale green walls, a gray floor, and a row of orange plastic chairs along the wall. I sat in a corner. The chair was hard and cold. I brought my knees together and hugged my purse to my chest. On the opposite wall, the little green man on the emergency exit sign ran endlessly. Time began to stretch like chewing gum. 8:39. No one came out. I took out my phone, opened the WhatsApp chat with Rick. The last message was mine from the night before. "Mom's surgery is tomorrow, so I won't be able to make dinner." "Eat out," he had replied with a curt, "Okay." I stared at that indifferent response until the screen went dark. 9:40. The operating room door opened, and a doctor in a mask came out. "Family of Mrs. Helen Davis?" I shot up like a spring. "Yes, that's me." The surgery went well. The doctor's voice was calm. The tumor was a bit larger than expected, so we had to remove 2/3 of the stomach. Fortunately, we found no metastasis. "She's in the recovery room now." She'll be up in her room in about an hour. Thank you so much. I bowed deeply, again and again. I hit my knee on a chair leg and it hurt, but I didn't even notice. The doctor went back inside and I collapsed into the chair. My legs were shaking. My phone vibrated. It was my husband. I checked the message quickly. Team dinner tonight. I'll be late. Don't wait up. I stared at the message for 30 seconds. Then I put the phone deep inside my purse. The week after the surgery was the longest of my life. My mother came out of the operating room, covered in tubes. A nasogastric tube, a urinary catheter, the IV drip, a drain in her abdomen. The monitor emitted a rhythmic beep that marked her heartbeat. Beep, beep, beep. I spent the night staring at that green curve, terrified it would stop. The anesthesia took a long time to wear off. My mother opened her eyes after dusk. Emily. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here, Mom. How are you feeling? Does it hurt a lot?" Instead of answering, my mother closed her eyes with effort. That night I slept on the folding companion bed in the corner of the room. To call it a bed was a euphemism. It was more like a hard armchair covered in vinyl. Although the hospital heating was on full blast, the cold that seeped into my bones wouldn't go away. At 3 a.m., my mother started vomiting. A greenish, bile-filled liquid gushed out. A sour, metallic smell filled the room. I ran to call the nurse, changed the sheets, and cleaned my mother's mouth. Her lips were so dry and cracked they were bleeding. The nurse said it was a side effect of the surgery, not giving it much importance, that the body was adjusting to having part of the stomach removed. I would hear that word, side effect, ad nauseum over the following days. The fever, the intense pain, the delirium, it was all part of the normal process. But the care fell entirely on me. Giving her water, cleaning her, emptying the bedpan, monitoring the IV. I slept in spurts when she slept, waking with a jolt at every moan. I also had to go to work. I had taken 3 days off, but on the 4th day, my manager called. There was an urgent matter that only I could resolve. In the end, I started a marathon. I would get up at 6 a.m., change my mother's adult diaper, and go to work. At lunchtime, I'd take a cab to the hospital to feed her pureed food. I'd go back to the office to work overtime and return to the hospital at 10 p.m. My diet consisted of deli sandwiches, the turkey and Swiss for $8.50, 3 a day breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The cold bread tasted like rubber, but it was the quickest way to fill my stomach. For the exhaustion, I bought packs of Red Bull and drank them. The caffeine made my heart race, but I felt if I didn't, I would collapse. I also called my husband. The second night after the surgery, unable to take it anymore, I huddled in the emergency stairwell and called him. "Honey, can't you come, just for tonight? I'm truly exhausted." "Emily," he sighed, "I'm busy too. Don't you know it's the end of the fiscal year and I have to close out the project? Do you want me to drop everything and hang out at the hospital? I'm not asking you to come every day, just one day so I can get some rest. That's why I told you to hire a caregiver. Why do you make things so complicated? A caregiver." I bit my lip. It costs a lot of money. It's about $150 a day. And money is the problem? He said it with astonishing lightness, as if talking about something foreign. "These things are solved with money. Don't be foolish. Don't work yourself to death." I didn't know what to say. "I'm busy now." "I'm hanging up." Again. The call ended. I remained crouched on the stairwell landing, looking at the call duration. 1 minute and 23 seconds. The tears I had been holding back fell all at once. I couldn't even cry out loud. The hospital stairs had a strong echo, and any sob would be heard on every floor. I covered my mouth and cried silently. The cold wind seeping through the crack in the emergency door brushed against my ankles. I cried for about 5 minutes, wiped my tears, and got up. I had to go back to the room. It was time to change Mom's IV bag. It took me 3 days to find a caregiver. $150 a day. Over $4,500 a month, practically my entire salary. The new caregiver was a woman in her 50s. She had rough hands and was a woman of few words, but she worked impeccably. However, my mother felt uncomfortable. I feel strange having a stranger touch my body. Mom, I can't miss work indefinitely. I know. It's my burden. My mother turned her gaze to the window. That night at home, I opened the Excel file for our household accounts. Since we got married, we managed our expenses with a joint account. I was the one who kept meticulous records. I wanted to check how much we had spent at the hospital when I discovered a strange transfer. Outgoing, $4,500. Beneficiary, Beatrice Carter. Beatrice Carter was my mother-in-law's name. The memo read, "Gift for Mom from a loving son." The date was from 3 days earlier, the second day after my mother's surgery, the same day that I, crying in the hospital stairwell, had called him, and he had yelled at me to use money to hire a caregiver. That very same day, he was giving $4,500 to his mother. I stared at the screen. My eyes burned. $4,500. The money I was agonizing over to pay the caregiver, an amount larger than my monthly salary, he had given to his mother just like that, under the guise of being a good son. Adans Prezachipi. M. My husband came home smelling of alcohol. "You're not in bed?" he said, loosening his tie and collapsing on the sofa. "Get me some water. I'm thirsty." I didn't move. "Honey, can't you hear me?" I looked at him. Thick eyebrows, a straight nose. When we were dating, I found him very handsome. Now, he was a complete stranger to me. "Rick," my voice sounded too calm. "Why did you send your mother $4,500 this month?" He stopped and frowned. "What's the matter? Are you checking the accounts? What's wrong with a son giving his mother some money?" "I'm not saying it's wrong, but you know our situation. Mom's hospital bills, the caregiver." "Hey, Emily." He sat up and stared at me. "Your mother's expenses are your family's business. The money I give my mother is my business. Why are you mixing things up? Why have you become so calculating lately?" Calculating. An incredulous laugh escaped me. "So, my mother's illness is someone else's business, but giving money to yours is an act of filial love? Don't talk like that. When have I ever complained about your family's problems? If you need money, ask for it, but don't come at me with this." He snorted, went to the fridge, took out a can of beer, and opened it. The sound was sharp. "Fine. Let's not talk anymore." I went into the bedroom and closed the door. That night, my husband slept on the living room sofa. It was the first time we had slept apart in 7 years of marriage. 40 days after the surgery, it was Christmas Eve. I was at the hospital feeding my mother some pureed soup. The caregiver had also gone to her hometown for the holidays and had taken the day off. "Emily." My mother, after eating half a bowl, shook her head. "Today is Christmas Eve. Shouldn't you be with your in-laws?" Just then, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. "Hello, Beatrice." "Yes, Emily. When are you coming?" "We have a mountain of shrimp to prepare, and you're still not here." My mother-in-law's voice was laden with irritation. "Beatrice, I'm sorry. I can't make it. My mother's caregiver took the day off today, and I have to stay." "What?" Her voice went up an octave. "Can't she eat a bowl of soup by herself that you have to be glued to her side? It's Christmas Eve once a year, and you couldn't care less about your husband's family." "Beatrice, she just had surgery and can barely move." "Don't give me excuses. You've always put your family first, and now you don't even hide your contempt for us." Through the phone, I heard my husband's voice. "Mom, she says she's not coming." "Yes, she says she's not coming, using her mother as an excuse." "Oh, and to think I accepted a daughter-in-law like this." My mother-in-law clicked her tongue loudly enough for me to hear. If the wife's family is common, at least the daughter should be smart, but this one is useless. Poor Ricky. Click, she hung up. I stared out the window. For Christmas Eve, the sky was cruelly clear and blue. In the distance, I could see the silhouette of the Manhattan skyline. "Was that your mother-in-law?" my mother asked cautiously. "Yes. I forced a smile. It was nothing important, just asking how you were. Emily. My mother covered the back of my hand with hers, the one with the IV line. I felt her thin bones. Don't fight with your in-laws because of me. They say when a woman gets married, she should devote herself to her new family. Mom, please don't say things like that, I snapped, raising my voice. You're more important. What does a little shrimp matter? My mother's eyes reddened. That Christmas Eve, my husband probably laughed heartily at his parents' house, eating shrimp cocktail and roasted lamb. I, by the hospital bed, ate a pre-made salad from a deli. My mother was discharged on the 87th day after the surgery. It was late December, and an icy wind cut at my face. I packed her bags early in the morning, toiletries, towels, a pair of old slippers. The heels of my mother's house slippers were completely worn down. I received a text from my husband. I'll be nearby today. I'll pick you guys up. Pigs must be flying, I thought. I replied with an okay. At 10 a.m., my husband's black sedan pulled up to the hospital entrance, emergency lights flashing. I approached, pushing the wheelchair. My husband was sitting in the driver's seat, looking at his phone. He didn't seem to have any intention of getting out to help with the luggage or open the door. With difficulty, I put the bags in the trunk and helped my mother into the back seat. She was panting with exhaustion. As soon as we were in the car, my husband said, "There's a box back there. Mom says it's for yours." On the floor mat of the back seat was a gift box. It looked like a gourmet food basket. On top of the box was a yellow sticky note. My mother-in-law's handwriting, firm and sharp. "Helen, I hope you recover quickly and don't cause our Emily any more trouble." I stared at the note. Don't cause any more trouble. Don't be a burden. The car ride to my mother's building took 20 minutes, an old 5-story walk-up in Queens. When we arrived, my husband didn't even turn off the engine. "I'm in a hurry. I can't come up." "Okay." I helped my mother out. She staggered and leaned against the building's entrance for support. I turned around to get the luggage from the trunk. Vroom. The car started. With my mother's bags, her toiletry kit, and her clothes still in the trunk. My husband's car sped off, exhaust smoke puffing from the tailpipe, and disappeared down the narrow street. I stood there, stunned, watching the car drive away. In my hand, all that was left was my mother-in-law's gift box, the box with the note that said, "Don't cause Emily any more trouble." "Emily, what's wrong?" my mother called out in a weak voice. "Nothing. It's nothing." I gritted my teeth. I helped my mother up the stairs. We had to stop on every landing because she was out of breath. It took us 10 minutes to reach the 5th floor. Once inside, I helped my mother to bed and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. My hands were shaking. He had left without even taking out her bags. He didn't care at all how my mother would get up the stairs or what we would do with the luggage. That night, back at my home on the Upper East Side, I turned on my laptop and created a new Excel file. File name, Evidence Compilation for Divorce Filing. First sheet. Date, the 15th of September 2025. Incident, refusal to assist with my mother's care on the day of her surgery. Evidence, screenshot of the 4-7-second call log. Note, excused himself with an important meeting. Date, the 16th of September 2025. Incident, transferred $4,500 to his mother while refusing to help with my family's medical expenses. Evidence, bank statement. Date, 24 December 2025. Incident, insults from mother-in-law on Christmas Eve, common family. Note, husband's passive acceptance. I kept typing. The record of 87 days. The words he said to me, his actions, his contempt, his indifference. Everything was documented, word for word. At 2 a.m., I heard the sound of the electronic lock. My husband was coming in. I closed the laptop and stored it deep inside a drawer. I lay down in bed and stared at the ceiling. There was a water stain on it. It looked like a broken heart. Now it begins. I closed my eyes in silence. In the darkness, I created an anonymous account on an internet forum. The username was UES Monday. Because I created it on a Monday night. That night, like so many others, Rick had come home drunk as a skunk. He had collapsed on the sofa and was snoring like a freight train. I published a post. Title: Married 7 years. Husband ignores my mom's surgery costs, but gives his own mom a $4,500 allowance. What do I do? The text was long. From the day of the cancer diagnosis, through the 87 days after the surgery, to the sticky note that said, "Don't cause Emily any more trouble." I omitted names and specific places, but I described the facts in as much detail as possible. I hit post and closed the laptop to try to sleep. The next morning, when I checked the forum, the comments section had exploded. "You are a saint. You need to divorce that guy. Now." Seriously? He gives his mom $4,500 and cheaped out on a caregiver for his mother-in-law. He's a total asshole. Divorce is the only way. Gather evidence and run, please. There were people asking for more details, people insulting my mother-in-law, people giving me information about divorce proceedings in New York and precedents on asset division. The response was overwhelming. Among them, a private message caught my eye. The sender was Family Lawyer NYC. The profile picture was of a man in his late 30s with glasses and well-combed hair. "Dear Madam, I am a lawyer at a firm in Manhattan specializing in divorce and asset distribution. I have read your story and would like to offer my advice. In New York, divorce proceedings, especially regarding the division of assets, are a battle of evidence against the at-fault spouse. What you are doing, documenting everything by date, saving screenshots of texts and bank statements, is an excellent strategy. You have already won half the battle. If you need a more detailed consultation, do not hesitate to contact me. The first consultation is free." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied with 2 words: "I will." 3 months later, I began to seriously organize our accounts and financial records. By then, 6 months had passed since my mother's discharge. Although she had to be careful with her food because she only had 1/3 of her stomach left, her health had improved considerably. On weekends, I would go to her house to do her grocery shopping, cook, and keep her company. Rick didn't care, or to be more precise, he wasn't interested at all. "If you want to go, go. It's not like you do much around here anyway," he told me with disdain. I didn't answer him. That night, in my evidence compilation Excel file, I started investigating something else: the bank transactions from our joint account for the last 3 years. Rick was not the type to look at these things. He didn't even remember the password for the banking app. He always asked me to reset it for him. He was the type, "Real men don't worry about these trivial matters." I downloaded all the transactions for the last 3 years, converted them to PDF, and reviewed them page by page. It was then that I found a suspicious transfer. The 17th of March 2024. Outgoing, $40,000. Beneficiary, Clara Carter. Memo, family assistance. Clara was Rick's sister, my sister-in-law. $40,000 was not a small amount. I did a quick calculation. $40,000 was almost my annual salary. This huge sum of money had left our joint account, but I didn't remember making that transfer. Family assistance. What family matter required $40,000? I investigated further. The source of the money was a loan, a personal loan in Rick's name, approved on the 15th of March 2024 for an amount of $40,000 with an interest rate of 4.7% and a 3-year term. The purpose of the loan was listed as family expenses. I opened the loan details and scrolled to the bottom. In the cosigner section, a name was clearly written: Emily Carter. My name. I stared at those 2 words for over a minute. I had not co-signed any loan. Ever. It was impossible that I would have forgotten. Co-signing a $40,000 loan with a 4.7% interest rate and completely forgetting about it was absurd. That meant the signature was forged. I opened my laptop, went to the bank's website, and requested a copy of the original loan agreement. The next day, the document arrived in my email. I opened the file and looked at the last page. In the co-signer's signature box, the name Emily Carter was written. It was a very familiar handwriting, the slant slightly to the right, with thin strokes and elongated ends of the letters. It was Rick's handwriting. I had seen it for 7 years. There was no doubt. He had forged my signature. He had taken out a $40,000 loan, using my name as a guarantee, without my consent, and had given all the money to his sister. Sitting in my home office chair, I stared at the forged signature on the monitor. I couldn't move. In the distance, the sound of a car horn pierced through the double-paned window. This was my husband of 7 years. A man who, behind his wife's back, used her name to get a $40,000 loan and give it to his sister. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. A new row was added to my Excel file. Date: the 17th of March 2024. Incident: husband takes out a $40,000 loan for family assistance. Forges wife's signature as co-signer and transfers the money to his sister, Clara Carter. Evidence: copy of the bank's loan agreement. Transfer statement. Note: potential felony charge for forgery. I found the notebook 2 weeks later. That day was a family dinner. My mother-in-law, at the beginning of every winter, organized a big meal as if it were an annual event. Rick informed me the day before. Tomorrow we're going to my mom's for dinner. Lend a hand. It wasn't a request, it was an order. I had no choice. The next morning, at 8 a.m., I arrived at my in-laws' apartment, a 32nd floor apartment on the Upper East Side with views of Central Park from the living room window. My mother-in-law was already in the kitchen, directing operations. The kitchen smelled of sautéed onions and paprika. "You're here," my mother-in-law said without looking at me. "The rubber gloves are over there. Put them on." I put on the pink rubber gloves. They were thick and clumsy. I could barely move my hands. For the next 4 hours, I was on my knees on the kitchen floor, chopping vegetables and preparing food. My knees went numb, and my back ached as if it were about to break. The gloves were soaked in sweat. My mother-in-law came by from time to criticize. "This isn't chopped finely enough. You've put in too much salt. That's not how you do it. You have to stir with more force." I silently endured the torrent of complaints that came out of her mouth with her characteristic shrill voice. I did as she ordered, like a robot. At lunchtime, my mother-in-law sent me to her bedroom to find some saffron in a drawer for the rice, she said. I opened the bedroom door, a room filled with dark wood furniture. On the nightstand was a religious figurine, and the smoke from a scented candle filled the air. I opened the nightstand drawer to look for the saffron. Then, my fingers brushed against a hardcover notebook. A navy blue notebook with worn corners. It looked quite old. I don't know why I opened it. Was it curiosity? Or intuition? On the first page, in my mother-in-law's handwriting, it said, "Daughter-in-law expenses." I held my breath. I started reading. The 23rd of May 2018. Wedding gift. 18K gold ring. Approx. Value. $2,000. September 2018. Birthday gift. $300. The 24th of December 2018. Christmas bonus. $300. The 8th of May 2019. Anniversary dinner. Luxury restaurant. $250. Everything was detailed with chilling precision. Date, concept, amount, even the meals she had treated me to. I turned the page. The 25th of January 2020. Bought her a coat. $500. The 2nd of March 2021. Gifted her a massage package, 10 sessions, $600. The 17th of June 2022. Money for Rick's birthday gift purchase, $100. Unnecessary, but oh well. And on the last page, in bold, was the total. Total approx. $25,000. Below it, a note in small print. In case of divorce, claim the full amount. Reading that sentence, my hands trembled slightly. $25,000. The money my mother-in-law had invested in me during 7 years of marriage. It was all a debt. The food I ate, the money I received, the gifts, everything was recorded in a ledger like a debt. Claim the full amount in case of divorce. Those words echoed in my head like a coiled, venomous snake. She intended to present this notebook to me and demand the money if I divorced him. By what right? Isn't a wedding gift something a daughter-in-law receives by custom? Isn't Christmas money a sign of affection? What about the meals and the times I treated her, and the gifts I brought her for 7 years for every birthday or holiday gourmet baskets, extra virgin olive oil, reserve wines, perfumes? Where was all of that? There wasn't a single entry for it, only what she had given me. Emily, did you find the saffron? The rice is going to overcook. My mother-in-law's voice came from the living room. I quickly closed the notebook and put it back in its place. Yes, I've got it. I'm coming now. I took the saffron from the drawer and left the room. On my face, the smile of a good daughter-in-law that I had practiced for the last 7 years, but my heart had already turned completely cold. That night in bed, I couldn't sleep. The contents of that notebook replayed in my mind. The gold ring she gave me at the wedding. I thought it was a sincere gesture from my mother-in-law. When she called me on my birthday to wish me well, I thought she at least considered me part of the family. It turns out it was all a calculation, recording every last cent, waiting for the day she could reclaim it. I turned over and buried my face in the pillow. Beside me, Rick slept peacefully. His regular snores were audible. This man slept so soundly, not knowing his mother recorded even the price of his wife's meals in a notebook, believing I knew nothing about the $40,000 he gave his sister. Or maybe he knew everything and was just playing dumb. Was there anything real in this house? Over the next month, I searched the house. The excuse was a spring cleaning and organization, but in reality, I was looking for evidence. I opened every drawer, checked every file, and then, in the very back of the safe in the home office, I found the prenuptial agreement, the agreement my mother-in-law insisted we sign before the wedding. At the time, I didn't know much about it and thought it was a mere formality. Rick also told me, "My mom is a bit over the top. It's just a piece of paper. Don't worry and sign." I took out the document and read it again, word for word. Clause 7. In the event the marriage is dissolved due to fault attributable to the wife, she shall waive her right to claim a division of marital assets accumulated during the marriage and shall compensate the husband with a sum of $70,000. My eyes widened. Fault attributable to the wife. What did that mean? If I was unfaithful, or if I was the one who filed for divorce, or if they made up a story that I didn't treat my in-laws well? This contract was a trap from the beginning. I don't know if this clause would even be legally enforceable, but one thing became clear. I couldn't give them any reason to use it against me. On the contrary, I had to make the fault fall on them. In the safe were other documents, a copy of the apartment deed, insurance policies, and an old yellow envelope. I opened it. Inside were several printed sheets with a WhatsApp conversation. The date was from 2017, a year before our wedding. It was a conversation between Rick and a woman. The woman's face in the profile picture looked familiar. Looking closer, my heart skipped a beat. Veronica, the friend who had introduced us, Rick's colleague from the same project team, the girl who introduced me to Rick at a company dinner. After we got married, we even treated her to an expensive dinner to thank her. The conversation went like this. Rick, Veronica, do you really think this is right? Veronica, didn't you want to marry a decent, modest girl? Emily is perfect. Her family is normal. She's not ambitious. Seems easy to handle. Rick? And you, Veronica? Veronica, me? I'm here. Period. Marriage is marriage, and we are we. Rick. Veronica. Don't you trust me? Veronica. Of course I do. Rick. Then do what I say. Your mother will be happy. I'll be comfortable. You'll be fine. Everybody wins. Rick. No. Rick. Fine, I'll do what you say. As I read, a buzzing sound filled my head. What was this? It was all a setup from a year before the wedding. I was an easy-to-handle pawn on their chessboard, a foolish and naive victim, chosen by both of them. And my last 7 years, what had they been? I collapsed onto the floor of the office. I crumpled the paper in my hand. A chill ran down my spine. It was already dark outside. Rick had said he would be late. Another company dinner. The office was silent. Only my ragged breathing could be heard. I don't know how long I stayed like that. When I came to, my palms were soaked in sweat. I took out my phone and took pictures of the conversation. I saved them in a private, password-protected album. I smoothed out the paper again, put it back in the envelope, and returned it to the back of the safe where it was, as if nothing had happened. Just as I had done for the last 7 years. Time passed. Ostensibly, our marriage was calm. I got up at 6, made breakfast, woke my husband, went to work, came home, made dinner, washed the dishes, and went to bed at 11. On weekends, I went to see my mother, and occasionally, I would stop by my in-laws' house to be seen. But beneath the surface, my Excel file grew longer and longer. WhatsApp screenshots, call recordings, bank statements, dashcam videos. Like a detective on an undercover operation, I gathered evidence one by one. My lawyer told me, "Ma'am, you are incredible. With this evidence, proving the spouse's fault is more than guaranteed. You will have a very advantageous position in the division of assets." I asked him, "The loan with my forged signature, can that be criminally prosecuted?" "Absolutely. It's felony forgery. If you file a complaint, he can be prosecuted. But if you do, be prepared for an all-out war. You'll need to be willing to see it through to the end." "I know. So, when do we file?" "Not yet," I said. "I'm waiting for the right moment." "What moment?" I didn't know exactly, but I knew that moment would come. I just had to wait. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Early that winter, exactly 1 year after my mother's discharge from the hospital, that night I was already asleep. At 1:47 a.m., my phone vibrated. Half asleep, I picked it up. It was Rick. Mom fell down the stairs at home. She broke her leg. "Come to Mount Sinai right now." I stared at the message, especially the words, "Come right now, right now." Lying in bed, I looked up at the ceiling. The winter night was silent. Not even the wind could be heard. I remembered a year ago, the day of my mother's surgery, when I called him crying, "Can you come? Just for tonight?" I haven't slept in 3 days. What did he tell me then? "I have a meeting tomorrow. Hire a caregiver. 90 days. For 90 days, he never showed up at the hospital. And now, because his mother got hurt, he was ordering me to come running. In the darkness, a smile slowly formed on my face. I picked up my phone again. I opened the Notes app. There it was, the sentence I had read every night for the past year before going to sleep. Copy. Paste into the WhatsApp chat window. Send. "Honey, remember when my mother was hospitalized for 90 days and you said you were too busy? Well, I'm busy now, too. I'm very busy preparing divorce papers. Oh, and by the way, the district attorney's office is very interested in that loan you took out by forging my signature. Sent." The double blue check mark appeared. The typing indicator appeared. It blinked for 3 seconds and disappeared. It appeared again. It blinked for 5 seconds and disappeared again. And then there were no more replies. I stared at the screen for a moment and then put the phone on the nightstand. I turned over and closed my eyes. That night, I slept deeply. I had no dreams. The next morning when I woke up, I had 47 missed calls, all from Rick. It seemed he had been calling like a madman from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. I ignored them. I got up at 7, showered, and got dressed. I prepared to go to work as usual. The phone rang again. It was him again. This time, I answered. "Emily!" On the other end of the line, a desperate and frightened voice erupted. "What does what you sent me last night mean? Is this a joke? You can't do this. My mother is in the hospital." In his voice, there was no trace of his previous arrogance and confidence. There was a tremor, the tremor of fear. Looking at myself in the mirror while I brushed my hair, I said calmly, "Don't worry, I'm not going to interfere with your mother's care, and you don't interfere in my business. I'm very busy." I hung up. The phone rang immediately. I pressed the reject button. It rang again, reject again, about 5 or 6 times. Then the messages started pouring in. Emily, please, calm down. Let's meet and talk. If I did something wrong, I'll fix everything. I'm sorry. Please, I'm begging you, don't file the complaint. I'll get fired. You'll ruin my life. I deleted them one by one without reading them. I picked up my purse and left the house. The subway at rush hour was packed. Squeezed between people, I held onto a pole and looked out the window. The dark tunnel sped by. My mind was blank, but my heart was full. A fullness I had never felt before. The next day, the mother-in-law entered the scene. At lunchtime, while I was in the company cafeteria, I received a call from reception. Mrs. Carter, you have a visitor in the lobby. She says she's your mother-in-law. I paused for a moment, then replied, okay, I'll be right down. I put down my utensils and took the elevator. In the first-floor lobby, a black car was parked outside the glass door. My mother-in-law was in a wheelchair, and Rick was behind her. She wore a long gray coat and had a blanket over her legs. Her face was pale. In one hand, she clutched something, a stack of papers. As soon as I walked through the revolving door, my mother-in-law screamed, Emily, you ungrateful wretch! The security guards and reception staff turned to look. My son has supported you for 7 years. Our family gave you everything. And you dare to report my son? To divorce him? Are you even human? My mother-in-law waved the papers she was holding in my face. It was the notice of the lawsuit my lawyer had sent and a copy of her accounting notebook. How dare you send this to our house? Do you want to shame our family in front of the whole neighborhood? I stood still, looking down at her. Beatrice. My voice was low and firm. This is an official document sent through a lawyer. Instead of making a scene here, you'd be better off going home and reading it carefully with your son. What did you say? My mother-in-law tried to get up from the wheelchair, but the pain in her leg made her sit back down. Behind her, Rick's face was ashen. Emily, he called out in a barely audible voice. Let's go home and talk. People are watching. There's nothing to talk about. Let the court decide. At that moment, a security guard approached. Ma'am, you can't do this here. This is a place of business. Please be quiet. If you have a matter to discuss, please wait in the waiting area. Don't touch me. I came to see my daughter-in-law. What business is it of yours? My mother-in-law yelled at the guard. Please leave before we call the police. Call them. Call them if you dare. My mother-in-law's face turned red, then pale. I turned around and went back into the building without looking back. Hey, Emily, don't go. I didn't stop. Do you know how much money I've spent on you? I bought you coats. I paid for your massages. There's a limit to repaying good with evil. I will curse you for the rest of your life. I walked through the revolving door. The thick glass insulated the outside, but through the glass, I could clearly see my mother-in-law shouting with her mouth wide open, and behind her, the pathetic figure of Rick, not knowing what to do. I watched them for a moment and then headed for the elevators. I felt someone behind me recording with their phone, but I didn't care. A week later, Rick proposed a family meeting. The place, his parents' home. The attendees? My mother-in-law, Rick, my sister-in-law Clara, her husband and lawyer Matthew, and me. I went. At 7 p.m. sharp, I walked through the door of the Upper East Side apartment. Rick opened it with a complicated expression. You came. In the living room, everyone was already gathered. My mother-in-law in a wheelchair with her leg in a cast. Her expression was still hostile. My sister-in-law Clara was next to her, looking at her phone. The brother-in-law, the lawyer Matthew, was sitting in a single armchair opposite, reading some documents with a serious face. I sat on the empty sofa. Rick sat next to me, shrinking. Since the whole family is gathered, my mother-in-law was the first to speak. Her voice, though softer than last time, was still full of thorns. Emily, if there are problems in the family, they should be resolved at home. It's not right to bring in lawyers and courts. As you know, my leg is like this, and I need care. As a daughter-in-law, Beatrice, I interrupted. I came to this meeting to negotiate the divorce, not to take care of you. The atmosphere in the living room froze instantly. My mother-in-law's eyebrows twitched. Rick tugged on my sleeve. "Emily, take your hand off me. Since we're all here, let's clear things up." I took an envelope from my purse. "Mr. Richard Carter, last March, you applied for a $40,000 loan for family assistance. You forged my signature to list me as a co-signer and sent that money to your sister, Mrs. Clara Carter. Can someone explain this to me?" I tossed the bank statement and the copy of the loan agreement onto the table. My sister-in-law, Clara's face turned white as a sheet. The lawyer Matthew frowned and picked up the papers. "What is this?" he asked. "You're a lawyer. You'll understand it at first glance. It's the record of a $40,000 transfer from our joint account to Mrs. Clara Carter's account. I am the co-signer on the loan, but the signature is forged." Matthew's gaze turned severe. He slowly turned his head to look at his wife. "Honey, is this true?" I didn't know," Clara said, trembling. "Mom and my brother said it was just for an emergency, that they would pay it back soon." "An emergency? $40,000 using someone else's name?" Matthew shouted. "Are you people insane? This is a crime." My mother-in-law, bewildered, stammered. "No, Matthew, it's not like that. It's just that between us, for an emergency—" "Beatrice," Matthew jumped up, "a sum of money this large, moving without consulting me at all, and on top of that, with a forged document." The living room descended into chaos. My mother-in-law tried to justify herself. My sister-in-law cried, my brother-in-law yelled, and Rick kept his head down, trembling like a leaf. I watched the scene coldly and took out my phone. I played an audio file. If the wife's family is common, at least the daughter should be smart, but this one is useless. Poor Ricky. My mother-in-law's sharp voice echoed in the living room. Then, Rick's voice. "Mom's right. Just ignore her." The recording ended. Silence. A silence so heavy you couldn't hear a breath. My mother-in-law opened and closed her mouth, but said nothing. Her face flushed, then paled. "You dare to record your mother-in-law?" Under the law, a recording in which one of the participants is involved is legal. "I knew that, Beatrice," I said, articulating each word. My mother-in-law put her hand to the back of her neck and staggered. Rick ran to support her. "Mom! Oh, how could I have raised you? 7 years living with you. How could I?" I put the phone back in my purse and stood up. "I've said everything I had to say, so I'm leaving." At that moment, Rick ran to me and knelt. "Emily." He grabbed my pants. "I was an idiot. I'm truly sorry. Please, withdraw the lawsuit. I'll do whatever you say. I'm begging you," he pleaded, wringing his hands. His face was a mess of tears and snot. I looked down at him. The man I had loved for 7 years. The man who had been my husband. Now at my feet, begging miserably. Many memories flashed through my mind. The 4-7, second call, the $4,500 sent to his mother, the sticky note that said, "Don't cause Emily any more trouble," and his indifference, never showing up even once, during the 90 days my mother fought between life and death. I shook my pant leg as if something dirty was on it. "My condition is one," I said coldly. "We'll talk in court." As I walked out the door, I heard behind me the sobs of my mother-in-law, the crying of my sister-in-law, and the shouts of my brother-in-law. I didn't turn around. Until the elevator doors closed, Rick remained kneeling on the floor, without lifting his head. That night, I went back to my mother's house. She was already asleep. I tiptoed into her room and watched her sleep. She looked peaceful. She had more gray hair than a year ago, and more wrinkles, but my mother was alive. The mother who would make me a stew every morning and scold me for not eating was by my side. That was enough. I lay down on the living room sofa and looked at the ceiling. My phone vibrated. It was my lawyer. "Ma'am, I've been told that today's family meeting was spectacular. The other party won't take long to make an offer." "Understood. Don't worry. With the evidence we have, victory is ours." I smiled, reading the message. The night sky over New York was covered in a haze that didn't let a single star show through, but I had a feeling that tomorrow would be clear. The subsequent events unfolded with surprising speed. Right after the family meeting that night, the brother-in-law Matthew announced his divorce on the spot. He filed a divorce petition against my sister-in-law Clara for concealing premarital debts and complicity in forgery, and made it clear that the $40,000 was her personal debt. Clara screamed that it had all been her mother's and brother's idea, but it was in vain. My mother-in-law, from the shock, suffered a blood pressure spike to 180 and had to be hospitalized. I was told that Rick lived through hell, pressured by his mother and sister. The Carter family completely fell apart. I just had to wait. 6 months later, the judgment came. The court recognized the forgery, the concealment of assets, and the husband's fault. I received 65% of the marital assets accumulated during the marriage and an additional spousal support payment of $50,000. It was proven that the majority of the mortgage on the Upper East Side apartment, of which my mother-in-law was so proud, had been paid by me, so it became my property. Rick appealed, but the result in the second instance was the same. The day I received the final judgment was a sunny spring afternoon. Standing on the courthouse steps, looking at the paper with the court's red seal, I took a deep breath. The air smelled of flowers. It smelled of jasmine. A year after the divorce, I moved into the apartment that was now mine. My mother came to live with me. It was a warm house where the sun streamed through the living room window, with views of the cherry blossoms in spring and the golden trees in autumn. My mother loved the house. It has an elevator. The heating works wonderfully. It's nothing like that fifth-floor walk-up. Every morning at 6, I hear the bustle in the kitchen, the smell of stew simmering, the scent of freshly made omelets. I get up at 7, shower, eat the breakfast my mother has prepared, and go to work. A normal but solid life. One Saturday morning, I was sitting on the sofa, drinking an iced coffee and browsing my phone. On the forum I used to frequent, a new post appeared. Title: Remember the story of that daughter-in-law who got her revenge. I wonder what happened to her. I clicked and saw hundreds of comments. Oh my God! Yes, I remember. That was epic on this forum. Did she end up getting a divorce? I read somewhere that she divorced him and got the house. A movie-worthy revenge. And what happened to the husband? Scrolling down the comments, a recent one caught my eye. I know from an acquaintance. The guy got fired. With a felony record for forgery, you're out at a big company. Now he's up to his eyeballs in debt and lives in a basement apartment in the Bronx. Serves him right. A basement. A basement in the Bronx. I remembered what my mother-in-law said the first time I went to her house. My Ricky was raised with a silver spoon. He could never live in a basement or an attic. And to think that her son, so haughty, now lived in a basement with the smell of damp. What face would my mother-in-law make if she knew? I put down my phone and took a sip of my coffee. The sound of the ice cubes was cheerful. The bitter taste of the coffee cleared my mouth. From the kitchen, my mother called me. Emily, the stew is ready. Come and eat. Coming. I got up and went to the kitchen. The sun illuminated the hardwood floor of the living room, and I saw my mother's back in her apron. The leaves of the pothos plant we had by the window shone a vibrant green. I stopped for a moment to take in the scene. This is my life. A life without a husband, without a mother-in-law, without ledgers, without looks of contempt. Just my mother and me, and our warm home. This is enough. Sometimes I think about Rick. It's not nostalgia. It's just that, like flipping through an old photo album, memories of the past sometimes come to mind. According to rumors, he has tried to date several women, but all the relationships have failed. His mother, with her broken leg, has pressure sores from being bedridden all year, and caregivers don't last long with her. My sister-in-law ended up divorced and broke, living off her parents' charity. Of the illustrious Carter family, only the shell remains. One night, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered, but no one spoke. Just ragged breathing and, in the background, the murmur of a bar. It seemed like someone drunk had dialed a number they didn't dare to delete. I hung up without saying anything. The next day, I had several more missed calls, but I ruthlessly added them to the blocked list. After that, they didn't call again, and a year later, on a sunny spring weekend, I was leaning on the sofa, looking out the window and drinking coffee. Someone had posted on the forum again, "How is that revenge daughter-in-law living now?" I smiled, reading the question, and turned off the screen. Outside, the birds were singing. It was spring. Dear listeners who have accompanied me until the end of my story, how did you find today's tale? I'm curious about the impression it has left in your hearts and the thoughts it has sparked in you. Please feel free to share your impressions and opinions in the comments. I will carefully read each of them. The likes and subscriptions you give me are the greatest source of strength and motivation for creating better stories in the future. Please don't forget to do so. I sincerely wish that your life is always filled with happiness and good fortune, and that the warm light in your hearts never fades.